Good evening, very warm welcome to the West Yorkshire Football Show and our usual Monday night roundup. We are low on numbers but high on quality in terms of guests this evening. Delighted to say, joined as always by Jayson Boocker, by Gareth Walker, and by Stephen Downes. How are we all doing, gents?
Very good, mate. Very smooth. Very smooth. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, good, love that intro. Love it. Who are you trying to please first? That's what I want to
know. Well, time will tell. Time will tell. We're going to start effectively at the end, which is how we usually do. Isn't how we usually do things, but we're going to start with the non-league stuff because our very own Jayson Boocker, kind of in the absence of Lewis this week, we thought we'd have a bit more discussion out of it. And Jay, you were at one of our non-league games at the weekend. Obviously, it was a big game for Campion. You had the guys from Campion on last Monday's show. The televised game, just shy of 600.
Record attendance.
Yeah, record attendance for Campion. I think 572 was the official figure. And a really good afternoon by all accounts. They got a 1-1 draw against Blythe Spartans, who are of the Northern Premier League. So just working that out.
Two divisions above them.
Two clear divisions between them, yeah.
And they were only recently relegated too from the Conference North. So
they were indeed. I mean, how was it for a start as an occasion and as a match?
Yeah, I mean, for those that you've never been to the ground before, like when you pull up, it's not just off of main road. There's very little parking. It's a bit carnage going on. There's them areas where you have to go in single file through like a chevron thing.
People usually park on them as well.
Yeah, it's carnage. It's literally a free for all. But you know, the atmosphere we're building right from getting there. There were a lot of Blythe fans. A hell of a lot of Blythe fans had made the trip down. You know, probably a bit of a one-off day for them to go and experience a different ground. And you know, there were no problems getting into the ground, no queues really. People were getting, you know, looked after really, really quickly, but you could feel an atmosphere building, which were really, really nice. I mean, I've been to that ground when there's literally been 10 people there, which, you know, a few years ago was quite the norm.
Yeah.
The rise that they've taken from basically a Sunday League pub team to where they are now is just, you know, unreal. And some of the players and staff and people around the club have been there through that whole journey. Which is, you know, even better to then see them result in what was a fabulous occasion at the weekend. I had the pleasure of being sat next to Zach Khan's parents, which was class. Didn't know that until he scored the goal that put them in front at the time, which was a really nice experience to be a part of. The Blythe fans, like I said before, were class. They sat or stood, I don't know, maybe, you know, from the stand. Those obviously, I know you've been, Chris, before, but as you walk through the little stand that they have there and the seats stopped, they were stood there in a big group and they made a real noise. And I saw a lot of people were watching the game on the phones to kind of catch themselves and see themselves on the TV and stuff. And to be fair to the BBC, the footage was really good.
Yeah,
they did a really, really good job, given the facilities and whatnot that is available there. I mean, you know, there's like one toilet where you go basically where the referees get changed. It's crazy. It is absolutely crazy. First time I ever went there, they served me a burger on a George Foreman grill. On this particular day, they had burgers and chicken wings and kebabs bought from a local takeaway that they just served out in portions. Like, it's just
why not?
It's class. Like, it's absolutely class. But
let's be honest. You're not short of a good array of takeaways as well, the Manningham side of Bradford in particular.
Absolutely. It was great. It was a great day. And you know what? The game was, and you know, hopefully the guys at Campion will hear me say this, they were an absolute credit to the club, to the management team. They were fantastic with Campion. Right from minute one, they were at a level with Blythe. Blythe were missing a number of first team players. I will say that they did have, I think, 6 or 7 first team injuries, but they still had some real talent in that squad. Nicky Davidix, who a lot of people will know, he was their main man in midfield. And Campion were by far, for me, the better team throughout the whole game. To be honest, they dominated large spells of the game. They really set about them. They had all the good chances in the first half. They had 2 or 3 cleared off the line. Early doors, and then you know, they obviously got the goal, well deserved, great strike from Zach Khan, and then unfortunately for them, 10 minutes after they scored, I would say maybe 7 to 10 minutes, something like that, it was a scrappy equaliser that kind of just fell for I can't remember who it was now, but fell for the player, and it was one of them where it kind of just bumbled into the net. And after that, it kind of felt like both teams were a little bit happy with the draw. Campion had a couple of half chances, but nothing really that stood out. And they have now the joy of a replay up at Blythe, which, you know, that replays are still a thing at that stage of the FA Cup. Not sure that they'll be too delighted with that, because I would imagine that they'll probably go up to Blythe and, you know, it'll be a different game. They'll probably struggle. Yeah. The attendance won't be great, and the money that they'll receive from it in comparison to what they received at the home league will be next to nothing. They'd have probably preferred the opportunity to take the extra time and the penalties and win on the day. But alas, that's not the way that it is. But yeah, like I say, mate, complete credit to Bradford, to the management team, to the history and everything that's kind of led them to that point. They gave it absolutely everything and deserved to win the game, to be honest.
As you say, they've got a replay against Blythe Spartans. That's on Wednesday night up at Craft Park, which, to be fair, it's a fantastic little ground to get to for those that may travel up to support Campion. It's a really good ground up at Blythe Spartans. They are one of the great names I always think of non-league football, Blythe Spartans.
Yeah, they are. I mean, they've obviously got their cup history themselves, exploits of knocking out some big teams themselves in comparison to Blythe and where they were in the ladder. You know, but Campion have obviously the part-time, and all the lads have jobs, full-time jobs. You know, Wednesday night up at Blythe is going to be tricky, and there'll be some players that won't even be able to make it. You know, there'll be some desperate, frantic phone calls on Monday and Tuesday to bosses, like, can I have the day off?
I need to start
drive up and all the rest of it. So they'll have that to contend with. But I'm sure that they'll go up there and give it everything that they've got, and fingers crossed they can pull off a bit of a miracle and get through to the next round.
Yes, because the second round.
I swear I remember.
Go on, Steve.
I swear I remember Blythe playing Newcastle or Sunderland in like the third round, like on TV a couple of seasons ago up at Blythe.
Don't think it was that recent, but they've had some big draws over the years. I can't think of anything.
Well, they famously knocked out Yeovil, didn't they? I think Yeovil were the famous knockout that they had. But when Yeovil were a bit further,
I might be thinking of that.
I'm pretty sure Yeovil were in either the Championship or League One at the time when they knocked them out. It was a bit of a giant killing by the perspectives. It
was when
I think maybe Paddy Madden played for him then.
That's what I was just going to say. I think Paddy Madden were playing, wasn't
he? Yeah, maybe.
I
can't remember exactly.
It is a big tie as well. If Campion were to get past Blythe Spartans on Wednesday night, the winner of that tie would face Bury.
Wow.
Who themselves, they knocked out Garforth, one of our regional sides. Bury beat Garforth at Garforth on Saturday by 2-0. But again, if Campion could pull that off, I know the the BBC don't like to put the same team for the televised game consecutive rounds, but that would be another deserving tie if Campion were to get past Blythe. Equally for Blythe, that's a great money spinning tie for themselves, because Bury will be sure to take quite a few fans up there, even though it's a couple of leagues below. As regards the rest of the first round of the Cup, it was, I'm sorry to say, not necessarily too good a weekend. There were a couple of positive results. Guiseley, they got through with a 3-0 win against Ashton United. Both sides there in the Northern Premier League. Elsewhere, we had Emily. They went out against Morpeth Town, again of the Northern Premier League, so a defeat for Emily on the road. Silston, they went out to West Disbury and Chorlton by 4-2. Warrington Rylands of the National League, the Northern Premier League, they beat Thackley by 4-0, and that seems like one of those days where I think Thackley were only 1-0 down going to like the 90th minute, and there was 3 goals in added time from Warrington, just to kind of add insult to injury, to be honest. On that one, by all accounts, it certainly wasn't a scoreline deserving of the performance from Thackley whatsoever. Tadcaster Albion, they went out 3-0 at home to Macclesfield. Barnoldswick Town, they've got a replay tomorrow night against Lancaster City of the Northern Premier League. That's a game I'm hoping to get down to tomorrow night down in Barnoldswick. I quickly flick through to see if there's anything else that I've missed. I think there's 1 or 2 others somewhere. Pontefract Collieries, they were thumped in the end by Sheffield FC by 5-0 at Sheffield. I think that just about rounds up most of the cup scores, unless I've missed anything that anyone can think of.
I mean, let's be fair to
want
some
to
of
say
these
on-
teams. Go on, Dowser.
No, I was just going to say, just to say on Emily, obviously that Morpeth were a league above them. I think, you know, they wanted to go up there and test themselves, but you know, obviously the league's the main priority. So I don't think they'll be too worried about going out. The only thing is, as we well know, and as Jay's rightly said, for Campion, it's the same at Emily. The money at that level makes a massive difference to all our sides. So that's the only down point, but I suppose, you know, from Emily's point of view, they'll just be, you know, wanting to concentrate on the league really now.
Well, for Campion, it pretty much funds their season. Does the game of the day? That's how massive it is. But you know, let's be fair to the teams at this level when they're trying to pull off a giant killing. It's extremely difficult. It's probably more difficult than a League Two team beating a Championship or a Premier League team because they're both professional outfits. They're both full time. You know what I mean? At this kind of level, there's a huge kind of gap really between, you know, maybe not a Blythe, but some of these matchups that you're getting because the teams that enter at FA Cup qualifying round, the first qualifying round, they're still pretty big clubs. I mean, you mentioned Macclesfield there, like it's, you know, it's.
Last season, Emily played Altrincham. There's 4 leagues difference. You know, I mean, it's mad. It's, you know, at the time, like that was one of the biggest FA Cup ties Emily's had in recent history. You know, and Golk has had some big ties recently. Like you said, Campion's had this one against Blythe. So it's just a good day out for the fans as well. And it's kind of another team that they've not really faced over the years. Sort of, you know, so I think fair play to anybody who's involved in one of these non-league clubs in our region because they do such a great job, all the volunteers. I mean, we have to say that it's really not easy at that level to get a game on, is it? You know, with the amount of volunteers that clubs have, sometimes it's not even that many.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as mentioned, Campion, if they were to win the replay against Blythe Spartans, would have Bury. The other West Yorkshire sides in the second round qualifying draw, so this will be played on the 14th of September. Guiseley have been drawn at home to 1874 Northwich. Guiseley are, I think, 1, possibly 2 leagues above 1874 there. And Farsley Celtic, they've been handed a home tie against Hallam, which leads us quite nicely into the biggest news of the evening, really, that came out about 20 minutes or so ago, and that's that Clayton Donaldson and Danny Ellis have left Farsley Celtic. They've won 3 games out of the 6 that they've played in the National League North. All 6 of their games so far this season have been away from home due to work being conducted on the ground. Now, I'm yet to read the full statement, but initial thoughts, Jay? I mean, it's surprising because to start the season the way they have in terms of playing away from home continuously, you know, a 50% win record out of that doesn't seem too bad.
I can only assume that this is as of a result of some sort of disagreement between the management team and the board, either to do with transfers or something. And I'm totally speculating.
I'll go through the statement that they've put out because actually it's not that long in the grand scheme of things. So this is what Farsley Celtic have said on their club website. The club would like to announce the departure of Clayton Donaldson as head team coach, along with his assistant head team coach, Danny Ellis. When making decisions of this kind, a large number of contributory factors are taken into consideration, but ultimately the board works solely for the benefits of Farsley Celtic FC, its development and its future. That's where our loyalties are and always will be. Danny and Clayton are both registered as players with the club, and we still retain that registration. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank both Danny and Clayton for their efforts and wish them all the best in their future endeavours. Director of Football, Pav Singh, will take over the reins as manager and will be assisted by club legend, captain and record appearance maker Chris Atkinson, as well as UEFA A licensed coach and vice-captain Connor Branson. I mean,
that's a mess. That's a mess because they've kept him as players. They've kept him as players, but they've sacked him as managers. How does that work?
The registration is still there. That doesn't necessarily mean It has to stay
I
there.
wouldn't be surprised if they're moved on as players as well. It feels very, very messy. And I mean, just talking purely from a football perspective, they've had a great start to the season, to be honest, because pretty much everybody has written them off as relegation fodder. I mean, me and Lou both, who watch a little bit of non-league, yourself, Chris, we all kind of expected them to be in a dogfight and probably end up going down, looking at the team that they'd gotten to get 3 wins out of the first 6 all away from home. Well, and even in the games where they've lost, they've been playing all right from what I've heard. They've scored goals, and they've not been like drubbed in any of the games. I think they've all been by a goal margin. And
you're reading my mind here, Jay. I'll go through the results that they've had so far in the league this season. So they opened the day with a 3-2 win away at Rush Olympic. That was followed up by a 2-1 defeat away at Buxton. They then went away to Marine, who were a big side in the Northern Prem last season, got promoted. They won 3-0, did Farsley at Marine. This was followed up. It was. This was followed up with a 2-1 defeat away at Scarborough. Again, there's no disrespect. No, nothing wrong with that. It's a place to go. They lost 2-1 away at Warrington, and then they lost 2-1. They won 2-1 away at Warrington, and then lost 2-1 away at Alfredton. So bear in mind, Rushall, Marine, and Warrington there.
Chris, bear in mind, Warrington went the whole of last season undefeated away from home, I think it was. They finished third in the division. They were one of the strongest teams in the division, were Warrington. I saw them at Avenue last season. They had Dean Furman in midfield. They're solid, really solid side. So.
It's not been a happy camp, though, at Farsley for a few years. And I know you lads watch more like non-league football than me, but like I know, from what we've said and the many conversations we've had on here and what Lou's said, it's just not been a happy place over the last few years. And I think he's sort of not said it's like as dramatic a downturn as what BPA's been through, but he did say the other week it's kind of got the similar sort of feeling around it. And I just wonder whether there's I think Jay's probably bang on. There's probably been a disagreement and a fallout at some way or some shape or kind for this to happen, because it's very early in the season, isn't it? Like I said, there's only 6 games happened.
That's what I was just going to say. I mean, you can't, reading that statement, I don't follow non-league anywhere near as much as any of you guys, but reading that statement and listening to what you've said, it just cannot be for footballing reasons. Reading through that, it's got to be, again, especially with players now taking over. Temporarily, it just makes you think there's something not quite right there.
I mean, again, I'm just going to allude to that first paragraph again. When making decisions of this kind, a large number of contributory factors are taken into consideration, but ultimately the board works solely for the benefit of Farsley Celtic FC, its development and its future. That's where our loyalties are and will always be. That, as you say, suggests
that's quite scathing. I think that's scathing me.
Look, time will tell. If anybody from Farsley wants to come onto the show in future weeks and fill us in on the situation. I know Danny Ellis myself fairly well from his years at Guiseley as well. He was an absolute club legend there. So if anyone wants to come on the show, discuss these things, they're more than welcome to come in and give their side of the situation with us. We are always more than happy for that to happen. Going forward for Farsley, as I quickly refresh my page. So for them, it's a not very easy looking game that they've got next away at Southport. Now, this was originally meant to be at Farsley, and then it was swapped because of the works that are continuing to be done. It was a game that I was hoping to go to because of people I know at Southport as well. It's going to be a very difficult place for them to go, Jay, with the way that Southport in particular have kind of recruited over the summer and started the season. I think that it's not been the perfect start for them, but on paper, I know me and Lou were both massively impressed with what Jim Bentley has recruited there.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely going to be a tough game anyway, and I think a lot of these kind of things, it all depends on the how this impacts on the players. I mean, for all we know, and again, total speculation, they might be happy with the fact that Clayton's moved on. Maybe this has come from the players. Who knows? Yeah. You know what I mean? But it could easily be the opposite. Maybe they are absolutely distraught with this, and it's something that they don't agree with. I think at this level, the players are probably more affected by stuff like this than higher up the ladders. I think, Championship players, Premier League players, they used to.
It comes and goes.
It comes with the
their own entities out there. They're like if a manager goes from any of our clubs, it's kind of the particularly the older players. They've been there, they've seen that, they've done it, haven't they?
Yeah. The relationships are different.
shrug and move on, innit?
Yeah, but for your middle-aged players and your younger players, particularly at non-league clubs, it's probably a big shock to them.
Yeah, no, I agree. So who knows, mate? But my gut feeling will be that this probably won't be a great thing for Farsley. But the board obviously they've got the courage of the convictions, as Simon Jordan likes to say. That they're gonna back themselves to do what they think is right. It's a statement, I'll say that. And maybe they've just got a big profile in place that they think can come in and do a better job. And maybe that's okay. Maybe somebody that they did have as a target before, settling on Clayton and the team became back available. And they've thought, look, we've got to make a big decision here, because as great as they're doing, we've got somebody that's a far better option. Maybe that's
who's
the case.
Around?
So.
Who's around? Do we know of any?
I don't mind if I said I know, but
there are a few names kind of off the top of my head from speaking to about the Avenue appointment. There's people like Alan Armstrong, who's done good jobs in the Northeast in particular. It's whether you could coax him down to cover in a West Yorkshire side or not. I'll be honest, Craig Elliott, who has obviously taken the reins, Jay, at Bradford Park Avenue, he would certainly have been somebody that I think a club like Farsley would have looked at for his work in the local area and beyond as well over the years. But obviously he's now off the market. There's probably a few names that are out there. It will be interesting to see what they do. Again, with the statement, that last paragraph though, Director of Football Pavston will take over the reins as manager, will be assisted by club legend, captain and record appearance maker Chris Atkinson, as well as UEFA A licensed coach and captain Connor Branson. That suggests to me, personally, the way I'm reading that is that actually that is what they are going to go with for the foreseeable.
I don't think they have an option.
Rather than bringing somebody in, so it'll be interesting to see how things progress there.
Yeah, I mean, Andy Welsh is obviously available as well.
Yes,
that could be another option. But yeah, I tend to agree with you. The fact that they've kind of put that in place as an immediate kind of response tells me that they probably don't have another name in mind at the moment. I mean, Pav's a really well respected, person within the footballing game. Like, he's a really, really nice guy as well. So I'm sure that he'll get a tune out of the players. But
is that daft though? Is that daft? Like,
I don't see it being a long-term solution.
Well, we say that at league level, don't we? If one of our clubs sacks somebody, you would expect them to know or have an opinion of who they want to be next. You'd like that.
And
like
usually,
and I agree with you, boys. It sounds like that they haven't, but is that daft?
Usually, it would be director of football that will be in place to be making these decisions. But obviously, as it turns out, the board have decided that the director of football, in this case, Pavsteen, is going to then step up to take the reins on the first team management basis. So, look, time will tell for Farsley. I'll say if anyone from Farsley Celtic wishes to get in touch with us, wants to come on and expand on that statement, they are more than welcome to. That our DMs are always open on Twitter, or you can email us as well if you want to do so. Just carry on with the non-league. Obviously, on Friday we spoke to Lewis, and we spoke to Tom McStravick as well on the deadline day show that we did, and their new management, Jay and Craig Elliott. We just mentioned it a moment or two ago. A good win for Bradford Park Avenue over the weekend. Craig Elliott not in charge of it, but I'm sure he'll have been pleased with what he saw from the sidelines of that one before he fully takes charge starting from today.
Yeah, James Hansen took the game.
Yeah, 3-1 Grimsby.
Yeah, good job. They really needed a win. They really needed a win. I feel like it's a perfect setting for Craig to take over. He's, again, the work that he's done at this level and higher is again really well respected. His win rate and win percentages are really good. I think he'll get massive respect from the players. I think he plays a good brand of football, and he was their number one choice. I think there's an element of for Danny Whitaker that it was always going to end like this. That's my gut feeling now in the aftermath of seeing everything. He was always the man that followed the previous regime, which, even though it ended disappointingly under Bauer and Bosch, they were so well thought of, and there was such an imprint of them within the squad and the team. Danny Whitaker was almost kind of destined to fail last season, unfortunately, and he tried to change so much in such a short period of time, and he had to. Yeah, he absolutely had to make them changes, but it always feels like, not due to his own fault, he was destined to fail, unfortunately. And I feel like this can now be a proper changing of the guard, a real fresh change to Tech Avenue focus. The squad is completely new. They've got fresh eyes over it now. And I just hope that they get it going, because that team needs to be in and around a promotion battle this season.
Don't start well,
there's time to change, and this is why I suppose the changes happened. But it did feel, Jay, didn't it, that the relegation last season from the Northern Premier League into the MPL East was really hanging over Danny, because even though he had a reasonable amount of games last season, obviously he wasn't able to stop the relegation.
Yeah.
And that kind of just seems to hang over, especially from a fan's perspective of, well, look how badly it kind of went last season. What are you going to do this season? And perhaps an element that he wasn't necessarily given a full chance by the supporters this season. However, as the change has been made and Craig Elliott's come in, like you go on the Avenue forums and on the social media, there is not one bad word to say about this appointment. Everyone has full trust and faith in Craig Elliott to be able to turn the fortunes of Bradford Park Avenue around.
Yeah, I think there were a little bit that went against Danny, and some of it were his own doing as well. And I think he'll probably, looking back, would admit that. But what I will say is, at the start of this season, he wins the opening game of the season, the first game of the season at home. First time they'd won an opening day home game in something like 7 years. Yeah. And it still felt like the second that the next result went badly, he was on the verge of losing his job. Now, if the fans and the club are fully behind somebody, it doesn't feel like that. You know what I mean? So I'm not going to just say he was fully to blame with that. But then we all heard the report back, from the, I think it was the game directly after that, players playing out of positions, tactics all over the place. And I think at that stage, he was desperately looking for answers that he couldn't find. Like I say, I feel for him. Great guy. Great guy. Really such a lovely guy. And my word, does a man know his stuff. And thankfully, he's gone and got a first-team coaching role straight away at Macclesfield. He's a top guy, and he'll always be successful within football, just because he's just such a good guy and he knows it inside out. Yeah. But it feels like it was the right thing for the club, to be honest.
Do you know where it went wrong? It went wrong when he didn't look properly at 4 stunning players that played at Abbeyfest. That's where it went wrong.
I mean, I had to turn down a 2-year deal, so I don't know what you mean there.
Back problems, I've heard.
Back problems. I didn't pass a medical. That's what it was.
And unfortunately, I just didn't get a chance because I couldn't hit the crossbar from halfway. So,
That will probably round us off quite nicely for the time being as regards non-league. I'm sure Lewis will be back with us next week to give his full in-depth review, as he always does. So we'll work our way up the leagues. Actually, FC Halifax Town, I haven't mentioned them. They got a good 1-0 win at Ebbsfleet United to get back on track after, I think, 1 or 2 little blips in recent weeks. So a really good result for Chris Millington's side down there.
Facts doing facts things, aren't they, Chris, if we're being honest?
Well, I'm just going to double check the table, actually, because they're going about things nicely. Let me just...
They're just doing what Dave will probably expect them to do, if we're being honest.
Early days as well. Very similar to Avenue. And I know you said they're down to that they've not had a good start, but they've still won 2 games, and I think they've lost 2 games in the league.
No, what I mean is like what I mean is that BPA are expected to get promoted out of that league. I don't think Halifax necessarily are, are they? It's different expectations, isn't it?
I think if you ask playoffs, I was going to say I think they're well expecting to be in around the playoffs. To be fair, as it is, it's 2-2-2 from the first 6 games so far this season for Halifax. Has them sitting reasonably comfortably in 14th, just middle of the road at the moment, and scope to build on there. Let's turn our attentions then, Gaz, to Bradford City. And as I put in the title, it was a grim away day for the Bantams. I mean, to be fair, it's always been grim. You go into Sodding Grimsby, for Christ's sakes. Sorry, Grimsby.
Decent chippy, though.
Yeah.
Should be by the sea, shouldn't it?
Did the cod have 6 things? Sorry.
Wow, Chris.
Bradford City, 2-1 defeats. Yes, so let's steer me back on track before I say something about Grimsby that I'll later regret. I'm just going to say I'm a Lincoln fan, okay?
Just want to point out
a big rivalry between Lincoln and Grimsby.
What do you have to say about Scunthorpe?
I actually get on with Scunthorpe. I have a lot of time for Scunthorpe. I lived pretty close to Scunny when I was a kid.
Just want to technically point out, Gaz didn't go to Grimsby. He went to Cleethorpes. Just saying.
Well, that's also true. Yeah, Grimsby Town, not even actually in Grimsby.
It's
Anyway, talk us through the game, Gaz.
Generally, really, really disappointing. I thought we started quite well. First 20 minutes or so were probably the better side, picked up where we left off. Grimsby scored against the run of play, really, to go 1-0 up. I mean, there wasn't a lot in it, but I would have said before that we were the better side. It's a free kick that comes into the box. Sam Walker comes for it. Doesn't really get anywhere near it. It's kind of headed out, but not headed out properly. And it falls to Danny Rose, who does what Danny Rose often does and puts the ball in the back of the net. It's a good finish, actually, because he's falling over as he hits it, and he manages to volley it into the goal. So 1-0 down. And from that point onwards, Grimsby were the better side. They could have been 3 up at half-time quite easily. Missed a few chances. We really started to struggle. The disappointing thing from a City perspective is that it looked like we got bullied. We got outfought, we got outrun, and we're not a good enough side to do that. Yeah, we've got some good players for the division. I think that David Artell said he thought our squad is one of, if not the strongest in the division. That's debatable from a City perspective. Maybe he was just blowing smoke up our arse a bit, but that's what he said. But we're not a good enough side to be bullied, to allow ourselves to be bullied and outfought and outrun, and that's what happened. Really disappointing because on the face of it, after the start of the season we'd had, like I said, we were 2 from 3. Should have been 3 from 3, barring a poor awful line-or decision in the game that we drew. You would expect us to go to Grimsby, who on paper are nowhere near as strong as us, and you'd expect us to win. But like I often say on this podcast, you just cannot ever predict Bradford to win, because when you think they're going to win, they go and do something like that, and it happens season after season after season. And yeah, just really disappointing. Our next 2 games in the league, well, we've got Newcastle under 21s in the Papa John's tomorrow night, but the next 2 games in the league are Carlisle at home, Walsall away, which are 2 much tougher games than Grimsby on paper. Walsall have had a fantastic start to the season, as I thought that they might. They were impressive last year, and they've picked up where they left off, and they could do quite well this season, could be a dark horse. Carlisle expected to do well. Obviously, started quite slowly and have sacked Simpson, so they could quite easily have a manager bounce on Saturday, depending if the new guy's in or even if it's the temporary caretaker that has the bounce. But they are teams that could beat us for quality, and the fact that we got beat for want of a better word, Chris, we got beat for desire and running and battling on Saturday, and it was really disappointing, and we didn't do the basics right. And like I say, if we don't do the basics right, we're not a good enough side to win the game.
I mean,
I had you to win and you to go up and Grimsby to go down, Gaz, at the start of the season. So I was surprised that you didn't win.
Yeah, on paper we should be winning that game, and like I say, it's just with City, you can never ever predict us to win because we do things like that.
Games aren't played on paper, though, are they?
Exactly.
Chris Potter, Bradford City fan, he says that the Baldwin injury and the goal knocked the wind out of his poor performance of slow passing tempo and a poor set of tactic. Your thoughts on that? I was going to go into that actually during. Now really. No, there is no time like the present, Gaz.
But the Baldwin
do
injury,
it now for an hour, Gaz.
The Baldwin injury did disrupt us. We've had a settled back 3 for the start of the season. We've had Baldwin at right centre half. We've had Kelly at left centre half. We've had Byrne in the middle. Baldwin did his hamstring, came off. I can't remember, it was either just before or just after the goal. I think it was just before Grimsby scored. And what Graham Alexander did was he brought Jack Shepherd on to replace him. Now, Jack Shepherd is a left-hand-sided centre-half. Aidan Baldwin is a right-hand-sided centre-half. So what it meant was he totally rejigged the back 3. Kelly went into the middle. Byrne went to right-hand side. And Shepherd played left-hand side. Now, Byrne hasn't got the pace to play as a flanking centre-half. Kelly always struggles when he plays in the middle. He did at the end of last season. He needs to be on the left. He can't play in the middle. And Shepherd had a poor game for himself on the left. Now, that really disrupted us, and it probably played a big part in the game. But the fact of the matter is, Graham Alexander had a decision to make when Aidan Baldwin went off, because he also had Chick Diabate on the bench. Now, Chick Diabate was a deadline day signing from Exeter. Yeah. And Graham Alexander was asked about it afterwards and said, why didn't you bring him on? Why did you go with Jack Shepherd and rejig the back 3? Because the reason he was asked that was because he actually said that Chick Diabate was brought in as right-hand-sided centre-half cover.
No.
Now, Graham Alexander's explanation for that was that Chick Diabate hadn't learnt that he'd only had one training session with us and hadn't learned the tactical stuff to come in and play that to play, basically. Why was he on the bench then? Why is he even on the bench if he's not going to bring him on in that situation? I just think it was the wrong decision. He should have brought him on. Otherwise, he shouldn't have even had him on the bench. And that would have stopped us from having to rejig the back three. And Kelly could have stayed left. Byrne could have stayed centre. And maybe it wouldn't have disrupted us as much as it did. There were other things during the game as well that I'd like to raise. The issue that I've raised a couple of times already is that I think that Walker and Poynton should be the starting eights. I think they did well at the end of last season, and they've been replaced from the start of this season with Sarcevic and Patterson. Now, Sarcevic was injured on Saturday and didn't play. He's got a knee injury. Poynton came in and played and did reasonably well, linking up with Tyreek Wright, to be honest, on the left. But I still think that Walker should be starting. When Walker came on as a sub, he changed the game, really. We were as threatening as we had been all afternoon when Walker came on. Made a real difference. We got the goal to go 2-1, and had not really many chances, but looked much more of a threat with Walker on the pitch. The goal that we scored.
It's unacceptable that Walker's not playing in
League
Two.
For me.
He's arguably one of the best players in the whole division. Never mind at Bradford, he's totally unacceptable that he doesn't start games. He starts every game.
I said, we've spoken about this before, haven't we, Jamie? And you both rate him quite highly. I said that he's one of my favourite City players. I've said from pre-season that him and Poynton should be starting because they finished last season so well and were a big part of why we finished last season strongly, and they've been replaced. Now, you're probably going to get away with it because we'd won 2 from 3, probably should have won 3 from 3, but when you lose a game like you do on Saturday and it doesn't look particularly impressive, then things like this are going to start to be questioned. So, yeah, he should have been playing. He made a difference when he came on. It'll be interesting to see if he plays tomorrow night or definitely next Saturday. The second goal that we conceded, I mean, the first goal, like I said, was Sam Walker coming for a cross, not getting anywhere near it. It's difficult to criticise Sam Walker because he's been brilliant since he came in. Only really had, I'd say, one bad game, which were Barrow away at the end of last season. We still won that game. The second goal that we conceded straight after half-time, it's just an awful goal. I don't know if you've seen it. Kelly gets totally out. It's just poor from Kieran Kelly. The guy, can't remember his first name. He's called Green, plays on the wing for Grimsby. Totally rinsed him for pace, and it's a tap-in, and it's just really, really poor. We did get back into the game a little bit when Walker came on, and Sanderson came on, and Odawa came on. The City goal came from an Odawa shot from outside the box that the keeper should have done better with, and Sanderson's following it in and puts it into the empty net. But we didn't create enough after that, even though we improved. And it was just really, really disappointing because, like I said, we had a good start to the season and it's a game you expect to go and win, and we fall flat on our face from not doing the basics right.
Yeah, a little bit of a hoodoo as well going to Blundell Park. Obviously with the cup defeat as well in the Carabao Cup first round as well on penalties. So, yeah, it's
interesting you should say that, Chris, because apparently, and I hadn't realised this, but there was a stat that came out after the game that they hadn't beaten us for 20-odd years. Obviously, they weren't including the cup defeat on penalties in that, but yeah, apparently so. It's 20-odd years since they beat us. But yeah, just really, really, really disappointing, and it just makes you think like, hello darkness, my old friend kind of thing, because when you start the season like we did, you need to go and win games like that, and we've turned up and not put the hard yards in and not done the basics right.
Guys, I just want to say, like, is it right that some fans are waiting for it to go wrong?
Okay, let's hold that thought for a second, Jay, because I'm going to bring Chrissy's comment back in. He says, please don't hate me. Graham Alexander has been found out already on his game. Fluke win at MK Dons, beating 10-man Bromley, and a poor 0-0 at Salford, and now this at Grimsby. The end starting 11 is the best 11. I feel like that is a comment that kind of helps you go where you're about to go, Jay.
Well, it similar to what we were just saying with Danny Whitaker at Avenue, it kind of feels like, for whatever reason, Graham Alexander's face just doesn't fit with City fans. They're almost encouraging it to go wrong. And I know we've made this comment about the atmosphere at Valley Parade and how it can be the the 12th man. I know it's cliche, but it's definitely true. Definitely at your place, it's massively true. And I could be totally wrong, but at League Two level, you're going to get a certain standard football that's going to be successful, or a certain display of football that's going to be successful. And Graham Alexander's he's got that down to a T. He knows how to win.
That's why I don't get it, Jay.
It feels to me like
understand it.
They were complaining about
Mark Hughes being
too
slow and possession based, and now we go Graham Alexander, and it's the opposite, and it's still a problem.
When's it gonna? Who's gonna fit? That's the thing.
Well,
since Parkinson, nobody's fit, right? And I don't agree, but like whether Gaz agrees, I don't know. But I don't agree that with a guy who's just said that it was a fluke win at MK Dons. City played really well that day, in my opinion. I thought that they did all right. And you're going away to probably one of the best teams in the division, in terms of they're expecting to go up and be challenging up there. So I disagree with that. But I really do. I know I have some time to go at Jay for what happens at Leeds, but I actually do not understand why some City fans really don't like Alexander. I don't get it. It's just mind-boggling to me. It's like saying some Manchester City fans don't think Pep's a good manager. I don't get it.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong here, Gaz, but it does just seem to be. I mean, look, you can't. I appreciate you can't please everyone all the time, but since Phil Parkinson, it doesn't seem to matter who is the man in the dugout. There will always be a section that wants him out, a section that loves him, and people that just couldn't give a monkey's really.
You beat me to it, Chris. That's what I was going to say. I don't think it's specifically that Graham Alexander's face doesn't fit. I just think that the fans are just ready at any opportunity to moan and complain. And a lot of the time they have something that they can, they're right with the grievances and they can. And it's perfectly reasonable to raise these issues. And I totally agree with it. But with Alexander, like we've said before, people didn't like Mark Hughes' style of play. People wanted a more, shall we say...
in your face.
In your face, that's it. Yeah, in your face type of play. So that's what they went for. That's what they've got. And we're still not happy when the stats were brought up at the end of last season. Since Graham Alexander came into the club, we were 5th in the League Two table. That's where we would have been if it just the games had the only game.
Yeah.
If you get rid of the bit when Hughes was the manager. But yeah, I just don't. I talked about it last week. I think people are always ready at City. They have things lined up, and they're not happy and the slightest thing. And I think it comes partly from because we've had such a tough time of it, barring the Parkinson years. Since we're in the Premier League, people feel that we've underachieved, and we have underachieved. But I'm just sick and tired of sacking and changing managers, and I don't think it'll make any difference. I don't see anybody that will come in and change that mindset that City fans have, that they're going to be ready to jump on things, and they're never ever going to. Like say, I mentioned it on the pod a couple of weeks ago when we were second in the league and we'd won 2 and drawn 1 and should have won all 3. People weren't happy. People were whinging about stuff.
But that's not Alexander's fault for underachieving for the last 20 years.
Exactly.
The fact of the matter is the people that have underachieved at the club are the people who are running the thing. And the people that are running the thing are either not capable of doing the jobs or they're not spending the money that needs to be spent and they haven't got a strategy. And we've all said that before about City. They don't know what type of players they're buying. They don't know how they're bringing them in. They don't know if they're freeze. They don't know they don't know about the Jake Young situation. It's just, I feel it's just, nothing's coordinated at City. And if it were coordinated, you'd soon shoot up the leagues. I honestly believe that.
It isn't specific to Graham Alexander. The manager at the end of the day takes the brunt of it, whoever the manager is and whatever the club is. People don't have anything, when people are unhappy about things, the manager always takes the brunt of it. I think there are underlying issues at City, like I said, the last 20 years. They're not happy with the ownership and the way the club is run and some of the decisions that are made regarding signings. There is an element to that this summer where we seem to have signed a lot of attacking midfielders, but we don't have any cover for Richie Smallwood. Like I said, there's the issue with the 2-8s. People think that the other 2 should be playing, but they line these things up. And then when we lose a game, it's just, they throw it all at the club. And it's just like, give them a break.
Yeah, I'm just going through the list of managers since Phil Parkinson left in June of 2016. the best win percentage, with the exception of, I think it must have, was it caretaker and then permanent for Truman and Sellers in 2020 to 2021, was 45%. Obviously, Stuart McCall had a similar record when he took over straight after Phil Parkinson. But the thing is, as well, you've had managers from all different backgrounds of the footballing spectrum, really. You've had Simon Grayson, who'd had previous success elsewhere. You've had David Hopkins, who had success north of the border, but then not down here. You've had Gary Bowyer, who's been steady at a couple of clubs. Again, never necessarily pulled up trees, but always been steady enough. You've had Derek Adams, who had literally got promoted the season before, came to City. That didn't work. Like, you've gone for the Truman and Sellers option of no experience previously, but giving them it doesn't seem. I mean, and then you've got Mark Hughes at the complete opposite end of the spectrum. That's only ever managing the Premier League. It doesn't seem to matter who they are or where they come from. It's just a repeat cycle of give it a year, 18 months, and they'll basically be hounded out of the club if it's not going the way that whichever majority of the whichever section of the fans is the loudest, whether it's the ones that want possession type, whether it's the ones that want the long ball. It doesn't seem to make a damn difference with City.
You're spot on. It doesn't make any difference. And what should we learn from that? We should learn that changing the manager every 5 minutes makes no bloody difference. It really doesn't. Surely we should know that.
Yeah,
by now.
stability.
What's happened since 2016. Surely we should try something different. And I like Alexander. I think there's a lot of people that do, and there'll always be people, whoever the manager is, people will have complaints and not be happy with certain things. That's natural. That happens at every club. There'll be people that won't like certain things. But when that gets really, really loud, which it seems to do really quickly at City, and gets thrown at the club every time you lose a game, it's just a bit too much. And I kind of hope, what annoyed me on Saturday, like I said, was the way we lost the game. We didn't lose the game because we were a worse team. We lost the game because we got out battled and out fought, and that's not acceptable, whoever the manager is. And Graham Alexander has to stamp that out. And if we go and lose a couple more games, this is only good. Like I said, Carlisle, Walsall, this is only going to get louder. But that's City, and I just really, really hope that we stick with somebody now. I hope that bringing David Sharp in just makes us switch off from the noise a little bit, and maybe just because you lose 2 or 3 games or you don't win for 3 or 4 games, you don't change the manager. I think you've got, at some point, you've got to stick with the manager, and you've got to say, we're going to give him the whole season, at least one or full season or 2 full seasons, and see where we are. Because like you've said, and like other fans have said, changing the manager every 5 minutes makes no bloody difference. When are we going to learn that? And whoever the manager is, this happens.
Are you at home tomorrow, Gaz, or away?
At home to Newcastle under 23s in the Papa John's, and then we're at home on Saturday to Carlisle.
I mean, even by given that Valley Parade has reasonably high standards of attendances, I can't. I mean, what are they doing, guys? Opening one stand for that one tomorrow night?
Yeah, it's normally one stand, Chris. It's normally the main stand, the Sunwin, that opens. Even in the League Cup, sometimes it's been that. And then if it's a bigger crowd, they'll open the Cup. But definitely tomorrow, it'll just be the main stand.
Yeah.
Away at Carlisle, you said at the weekend.
No, home to Carlisle on Saturday.
Oh. I'm just going to do
the week after.
I'm just doing the predictions, Chris, if you want to do them. I'll stand in for Lou.
See, this is it. This is what I've said about City. You just can never predict us to win, because when we start doing something well, like we have at the start of the season, we do this. We do what we did on Saturday, and we don't turn up.
Gaz, we are going to attempt it anyway.
Yes.
So, Gaz, we'll start with you. I'm not overly asked about predicting the result tomorrow night, but
no, I've written it down. I want to know. I've written it down.
Go on then. Newcastle United's children. Scoreline for that game, you guys.
We've got, I think there'll be changes because Sarcevic is apparently still injured. Listen to Graham Alexander's press conference today. Sarcevic has still got a problem with his knee. Callum Kavanagh came off on Saturday at half-time. He's been poor, really poor at the start of this season, which is a shame because he finished last season really, really well and I had high hopes for him. He's going to be missing through injury, apparently, but like I say, he's been poor. I think Sanderson will play. We don't know whether Cook come in for Cook. And then Baldwin's obviously injured, so you'd expect Diabate to come in, hopefully, like he probably should have done on
he's having issues.
For him. I think we'll win tomorrow night. I think we'll beat Newcastle under 23.
Give us a prediction.
You're having a lot of connection issues, Gaz.
Give us a prediction, Gaz, before you zone out.
I wonder if it was just me, to be honest. But go on, Gaz. I think you're back now. What was that score prediction again?
Did you miss all that I said then?
No. We got
bits of it. But the score—that's the important bit. What's the score?
City will win. City will win 2-0.
Right, 2-0, there we go. Right. And for Carlisle on Saturday. Hang on, we'll do both games for each person. Carlisle on Saturday.
Now, I fear Carlisle more when Simpson's manager normally, because he always does well at Carlisle. He always does well against us, and he's gone. But they were really crap at the start of the season, so I'm not sure how I feel about that. We'll draw 1-1.
1-1.
Jay?
So, I don't even know how you predict tomorrow's game, because playing Newcastle...
Well, just have a go. Just have a go.
1-1.
That's not an answer.
1-1.
1-0. Right.
Oh,
Chris.
Who's going to win on penalties? It doesn't matter. We'll carry on.
And then, they get an extra point, don't they? I think that's
if they win on penalties, it's an extra point.
And then at the weekend, 1-1 as well.
Oh, no.
There we go. I'm going to go... I'm going to go 3-0. No, I'm not. I'm going to go 3-2 to Bradford City.
That changed quickly.
Yeah, well, I thought, you know what? I can't. Why not? I mean, it's one of those games where you can guarantee, because there'll be about 1,500 people there, because it's the Papa John's Trophy. Sorry, Bristol Street Motors Trophy. That actually will turn out to be a really good game of football. Yeah, I'll go 3-2 Bradford for the Newcastle game. And because I'm always optimistic for you guys, I'm going to go for a 3-1 win against Carlisle.
Right.
I just really hope. Sorry, go on, Downsy. You do yours.
I've gone Newcastle under 23s or whatever it is to win 3-1 tomorrow, guys. I'm really sorry.
Sorry.
I don't think they're quite. I just don't see City being up for it, if I'm being honest. But I am going to give you a 2-1 win on Saturday, because I think you'll get your asses into gear. I really do.
I just really hope that we don't lose at the weekend, because, like I said, we've got Walsall after that, and we last season we were very much win a few, lose a few, win a few, lose a few. We've got to remember that we were on a really good unbeaten run before Saturday. I think we were 11 games unbeaten going back into last season, and I don't want to start. And obviously the noise is going to get just louder and louder, which is daft when you've just been on such a great unbeaten run. But it'll get louder and louder, and we need to avoid these win-lose scenarios. So I just hope that we don't lose back-to-back games. And I never want us to do that anyway. But obviously, just with everything that's got the noise around, we can't start losing back-to-back games, because it just gets louder and louder.
There we go. I think that rounds off Bradford nicely, although very briefly sticking with League Two. I think the possibly most unlikable match in League Two in regards to clubs of Salford City versus MK Dons is currently goalless on telly. Yes. I mean, does anybody like either of those two clubs massively? Not now Matt Smith's retired. Let's move on then up the leagues into League One with Huddersfield Town and Stephen Downes. He's got a smile on his face, but he's not inside. It was a defeat on the road for the Terriers, the first defeat of the Michael Duff era as well. A 2-1 defeat at Rotherham United on Saturday.
Well, you are technically wrong, because we lost to Walsall in the cup.
All right. Was his
first defeat. Well, I wanted to forget about it.
All right, first league defeat. There we go.
Well, so do you want me to describe the Walsall one at all?
No. Nah. It was just going out of the cup. It's fine. It happens.
Okay. Yeah. Well,
let's focus on the main things, and that was Steve Evans' Rotherham United.
Yeah, well, it was just a difficult game. Obviously, we were going into it on the back of that Walsall defeat. I really wanted us to perk up for the league again, and obviously Rotherham came down with us, so it's a big sort of, not just a Yorkshire rival, but obviously a rival that you're expecting to be up there at the top of the division. And it was a very scrappy game between both sides. Not a lot of quality, if I'm being honest. They had a couple of chances. We had some half chances, really. I think.
The header, Downsy. The header, man.
Yeah.
That's a massive chance.
The header with Tom Lees is a big one. He should have done better. But they also had some chances which they should have scored from as well. They had a few clean headers actually at goal, which Nichols had to deal with. And then the game all sort of changed in a mad 2 minutes, really. Danny Ward got sent off. We then went 1-0 up. Then they got a penalty, and Johnson Clark Harris, or whatever his bloody name is, he scored. And then obviously Wilkes at the end, Malik Wilkes got the winner in the 93rd minute. And it was pretty soul destroying, really, because I've had some moments at that ground, really. Tommy Smith scoring back in 2016 in the last minute and that. And we don't really lose to Rotherham that often. So it was, definitely a deflating defeat. I know in the WhatsApp chat that where we disagreed on both accounts of the sending off and the penalty. Town vociferously disagree with both decisions, but particularly the penalty shout. Martin Patson at the press conference today. But once the decision's over, the decision's over, and dumb defending for the winner for Rotherham meant that we came away with no points. And it's been a blip. I think they're very trying to stress the fact that it hopefully is going to be a blip and not sort of a slide to anything more. But just disappointing, Chris, in the end.
It just looked to me like, Downsy, it's just looking from the outside, that was such a Steve Evans game. That is what Steve Evans likes. He loves games like that. You've got someone getting sent off. You've got a last-minute penalty. It just reeks of Steve Evans and the nasty little man that he is. Or nasty
he ran
on the
press conference, didn't he?
Yeah, and he ran on the pitch when they scored the winner and, giving it everything. It's just...
Didn't you have one of your either your manager or your coach sent off?
Oh, both. They were both sent off. Referee I'm going to agree with Jay here. And to be fair, referee was an absolute tosser at our game. He couldn't wait to get his cards out. It were like they were on a string for him. I know we've disagreed about the sending. I don't think he's really touched him, to be honest.
I don't know whether he's touched him either. But what I can say is that Danny Ward's ran across with his arm outstretched, and he's given the referee a decision to make. If he has made any contact, even slight, it is a red card. And the fact that it's gone down in the way that he has and there's no VAR, you're asking for it. I thought, on looking at both decisions, I thought both decisions were correct. And I think you were lucky not to go down to 9 men with Lasse Sorensen getting a second yellow. Because for me, I thought it was a stonewaller. I know we disagree, but the fact taking the bias.
But have you seen the other angles though? Have you seen the angle from behind the goal?
Well, I'm just looking at the highlights now. For me, the red card seems harsh. I know what you mean. I think. I agree with more on Jay on that one. To be fair, from the intent with which Ward has gone in, I see it. I get why he's been given it. I think the Rotherham player though has sold that.
He's made a meal of it. Yeah.
He's made an absolute.
Matt Lennon.
Hang on. Looking at the other angles though, from behind the goal. On the TV pitch, it really doesn't look that anywhere near that bad at all. I think that's harsh myself. I think the penalty though was for me, but I'm gonna piss off both you and Jay because I think he's one of those that on a different day with a different referee, he doesn't give it.
I was just going to say that. It's one of those. They can go either. Both those decisions can go either way, and you feel really aggrieved, really aggrieved when they go against you.
Yeah, I genuinely think it's just one of those where looking at it, I can see why he's given it. And for that, I think in this case, because I can see why he's given it. On a different day, different referee wouldn't give it. And I think that we also like, fair enough. But
you also think, having seen the angle behind the goal, Chris, obviously I don't know if you've seen it, Jay, but having seen the angle behind the goal, you do accept why I thought it was harsh as well then.
To a point.
I've not seen the angle behind the goal either Downsy, by the way.
You just naturally agree with me anyway, Gaz.
I think ultimately it doesn't matter because the angle that matters is the one that the referee has, which is the one that we all see. And the facts are, it looked like a penalty.
Yeah, I can see why it's been given myself. Town should have had a penalty at the other end for the joke of it. I mean, I don't know if that made the highlights reel from what I've seen it, but.
Well, you would agree with the Pompey penalty at the start of the season.
I get it.
And this, in my instance, is kind of that version of that. There's different angles which show different. I get more the Wardy one. I think the only thing with a Wardy one that makes it for me is Matt Glennon, who was our BBC Radio Leeds correspondent, who does all the commentaries. He watched like Evans and the player after the game, and it just generally looked like they were laughing with each other, like in terms of they knew that the kid had
dark arts.
And the player.
Dark arts. As much
Dark
as I can be doing with Steve Evans, I do respect him a hell of a lot for
and he went over to. And basically, after the game, he went over to shake the referee's hand, and from what it looks like, he's like having a right good laugh with the referee.
The guy's
and like,
this is Steve Evans all over.
Yeah,
this is what we had. There was a supporters group, a City supporters group, a few years ago. Skipton and Craven Bantams, and they actually had Terry Dolan for an evening, like an evening with Terry Dolan, who was a referee's assessor at the time. And he said in that meeting that basically the toughest manager, the teams that you have to watch, like for little things like corners, like raking down the back of people's legs at corners, all the nasty little things that they try and do. He said any team managed by Steve Evans.
Yeah.
I hate the fact that he was ever our manager. I absolutely despise it. And I know obviously it was years and years ago now, but the fact that he ever got the luxury of being manager of Leeds United irritates me to death.
And he gets linked with City every time the manager's vacancy comes up. And because of what happened, obviously, with Fight Night and getting decent exposure and all that with the Crawley game, some fans would just never accept him as City manager.
No, I'd never accept him at Town. I very rarely say that about any manager. But
the interesting thing is that he was used to really like him, and Parkinson didn't get on at all. And from what you can gather, reading between the lines now, Evans is desperate to come and manage City. He'd walk over hot coals to manage City, and he's been at City games when the manager's vacancy's been when there's been a vacancy. And apparently, after not getting on with Parkinson previously, now they get on really well. And Parkinson's told Evans that he would absolutely love it at City, but the fans just would never have him.
The daft thing is, I'm sitting here thinking, actually, for everything that we've said about the City fan base and it always being divided, in a weird way, Steve Evans would be the one to unify the fans.
He'd be giving it this, mate. He'd be giving it this. He'd be giving it this.
But I'm not gonna lie. Purely from a footballing perspective, and his track record, I find like as much as a bit of a horrible bloke that he is, his track record at club level is ridiculous, and actually, he would get City out of League Two without a doubt.
This is the discussion that often happens when people talk about him coming in as manager. And my point always is, he didn't get Mansfield promoted out of League Two with the budget that they had at the time, and he also didn't do particularly well at Peterborough with the budget that they had at the time, and he also didn't do particularly well at Gillingham either. So the point is that he's not a guaranteed success that some people make him out to be.
Not like he used to be.
He's a guaranteed success, and I'll put up with it regardless because he's guaranteed, but he's really not.
He used to be. For a long while, he was a very consistent, or seemed to be anyway, a consistent promotion specialist. But we digress. Can
I just bring something back down here and fire it back to you as a Huddersfield fan? Was the difference between the two teams ending up being a bit of firepower? Because Johnson, Clark, Harris, Malik, Wilkes at League One level.
I think, yeah, you know what I mean? I think we're struggling with strikers at the moment, and that's why we needed to get one in. And it does make a difference at League One level. I think what I would say though, Jay, is that we tried to play football, even if it was badly, and they were not very good. I was surprised at how poor they were, really. And at the end of the day, they've got. Wardy's been sent off. Once they've scored the penalty, they kind of the tails were up. I think we were dealing with Clark Harris pretty well, to be fair, Jay. Up until we got a man sent off, we were doing all right. But once that decision was made, it did change the game. I'm not going to lie, and I think if it had been 11v11 up until sort of like for the whole match, I think it would have ended in a draw. It was a mad 5 minutes when you look back at that game, because the first half, it was not to write home about at all. So
Rotherham really needed that, didn't they?
They did. It was a bigger result, Gaz, for them than it was us. I think we can bounce back. I think
it reminds me of when Southampton beat us at St Mary's last season on the back of 5 straight losses for Martin. I know it's not as bad as that.
Yeah.
But Steve Evans is he was really struggling and not hadn't won a game yet, had they? So
Dan scored a goal, Jay.
Yeah.
Dan scored a goal. It like the fact of the matter is, like you said about firepower, but really in the games that they've had, they've been really poor. So listen,
that'll probably set them off, that won't it? Now,
you very rarely see Michael Duff lose his temper, from what I understand, and I think whatever he said to the referee was probably deserving of a red, because I think he was that cross. But we move on to Donny tomorrow. Under 21, not under 21, bloody hell. Doncaster's first team. I think we'll lose. We've got a lot of kids playing tomorrow. It's virtually going to be a town.
Is that away at Donny?
Yeah, away at Donny. It's basically going to be a town B team. I would expect, really. We've got a lot of injuries. Well, not when I say a lot, we've got some key injuries. Reece Healy pulled out of the warm-up before the Rotherham game. Wardy can play. I don't really know how it all works with cards, because Wardy can play, and Pearson got sent off at Walsall, but he can play. Obviously, missed Rotherham.
The JPT cards don't count. It's treated as a separate entity.
Oh, is it? Yeah. So, like, they're available, but I imagine it's going to be quite a young side. And yeah, I just think that we'll probably lose, because there's not going to be a lot of town fans going. We just no appetite for it. We haven't played in it for 12 years. I don't think anybody's that bothered, if I'm being honest. I don't. Yeah, but I think. Do you know what I do think though? I think it's a really good opportunity for the young lads to have a good competitive fixture. That's what I do think, against what will be a decent Donny side. Billy Sharp up top and all that. So I'm excited to see how the younger ones get on, and we'll just see what happens. But I'll go for a. Hang on, I've written it down here. What am I going to go for? Hang on. Whoa, what am I going for? 2-1 defeat to Town.
It'll depend what changes Donny make as well, because obviously,
yes, they'll make changes too.
I think we'll make changes. League 2 teams will make changes as well, Downsy. So it'll depend it always depends in that competition what side each team puts out.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. And obviously, there's no game at the weekend due to international call-ups. So
we were supposed to play Blackpool, but that's been rearranged now.
Yeah.
So. What everybody's predictions, Gaz? You want to go quick?
You wait, Donny.
Yeah.
1-1.
Right. You'll go strong. 2-0 from me.
What, Town win?
Yeah, no game of the weekend. You'll go fairly strong, I think. So 2-0.
That's a good point.
That is a very good point, actually. I'm going to change then at the last second and go for what I was going to go with a 2-2 draw and a penalty win. I'm going to go for a 2-1 Town win in that case.
Obviously, we haven't played in this competition for 12 years. So basically, it goes to every game goes to penalties if it's a draw.
If it's a draw, it goes
in the group stage.
In the group stage, and you get a bonus point. And actually, it goes to penalties at the last stages too, to be fair.
Yeah.
So if you win on penalties, you get 2 points in the group.
Correct.
Yeah.
That has blown your tiny mind.
Why does this competition exist?
So happy to be back, aren't you, Downsy?
Just go back to when you could just play knockouts, and I remember we played Carlisle 5 times in about 6 weeks.
Back in the days of the LDV Vans Trophy. I mean, it's the same competition. Actually,
also Windscreen Shield.
It was the JPT, and we played them twice over 2 legs in the Northern Area final. We played them twice in the league and once in the FA Cup.
Also Windscreen Shield, as it was back in the day.
And we were in the final of that in '94 against Swansea.
This is the thing. You've got history in this competition then, Downsy, because it's the same competition. We're just about 27 sponsors on from that then. That's all it is, really. The final thing to say on League One before we move up to Leeds United, Downsy, is if the season ended now, it'd be Lincoln versus Huddersfield in the playoffs, and we'd finish above you. Right, let's move on.
Don't mean that you're winning the playoffs because you've got a crap record, mate. So,
They're winning the semis, though. They're winning the semis.
Let's move on. Leeds United, then Jay, and a very happy weekend for you guys. And obviously, the man of the moment, you said on Friday night when we were doing our deadline day show that Manor Solomon would make a bit of an impact. Lo and behold.
It's almost like I know my stuff, isn't it, mate?
Occasionally, yeah.
Occasionally. The amount of fans that were saying he was just going to be a bench option, for me, has blown my mind on socials this week. I'm like, you literally just don't know what you're talking about. It's as simple as that. You just don't know what you're talking about. His injury record is a problem, and that's why he's even at championship level as a Premier League player. He's on the back of a meniscus knee injury, which basically kept him out for the whole of last season. But his qualities are just unreal. He played all the way through pre-season for Spurs. He's been injury-free now for a decent period of time. He's in a position where we've got an abundance of options, to be honest. So it was worth taking the risk. And within minutes, I'd say within the first 10 minutes, you could see his technical ability was just Premier League. You could just see it. Obviously, not to skip too far ahead in the game, but he then takes the ball onto his weaker side, drives to the byline, which Chris Somerville would never have done, which Nonto will never do. They just don't do that. They always want to cut inside, but Solomon's got that something different where he's confident enough to drive to the byline, whips it in with his left foot, and Joseph runs across the front post like any great striker does, and gets a great finish. And it's almost a simple goal, but the technical abilities of Solomon is making it possible. You know what I mean? So, it was a great debut from him. It was excellent. Arguably man of the match. It wasn't mine. I gave that to somebody else, which we'll come to, I'm sure. But he was excellent, mate. So delighted to see it happen. You know, he got straight in because of the injury to Dan James. Probably going to be out until after the international break is Dan, unfortunately. But Solomon took his chance. Looked great.
Overall, you were kind of, I know we were expecting it to be a fairly tricky game just because Hull have certainly seen to be a side that have improved gradually over the last few years. How did they look, and how was the kind of game overall, Solomon aside?
Yeah, the game wasn't great first half. Hull had moments. They had passages of play where they dealt with the press really, really well, knocked the ball about in like first time passes, moved it quickly, and were brave along the back line, even though the keeper were a bit shaky, Pandev, a couple of times. But overall, they dealt with the first half really, really well. They created probably the first real best chance of the game, which was a Stonewall free kick for a foul on Rodon, but the referee played on and totally lost the game for 20 minutes after that. Both sides, by the way. The referee was terrible both ways. I'm not just saying it was a Leeds specific on it, but this foul started it, and it was one of them. So like the striker looked at Joe Rodon and just ran at him, jumped into him, which then pushed Rodon off balance, which then made Rodon flick the ball towards his own goal and put the striker in, if that makes sense. It was a weird one, but it was a clear and obvious foul. It was such a strange moment. And that created then a 10 or 15 minute kind of spell for Hull where they had a couple of corners. They've got some dangerous players too. The diminutive Turkish lad in midfield, I forget his name now, but he was very good. Liam Miller out on the left. He's always a problem for us, caused Jayson Boocker a few problems throughout the game. And the big lad, the new striker up front who I just mentioned, he was very good as well, summer recruit. So they did. I think they'll be in and around the top 10, Hull. But we grew into the game. We still created chances. We were better. We looked better going forward. And I thought as soon as we scored, Brownie disagreed with me in the review, but as soon as we scored, I was never in doubt that we were going to win the game. It felt very comfortable from that minute on that we had enough to control the game. And then obviously we closed it out with the goal for the second goal is very harks back to Bielsa style of football. Won the ball with a press in our own half, and the counter attack was just electric. And all through Junior Firpo, brilliant down the left hand side, and the pass in. Go and watch it. Honestly, it's a world class pass. Actually, he plays a curling ball right round the whole of the back line, which just falls perfectly for Perrault. And Perrault, the Peronimus man who is just a killer in front of goal, but so often can be found completely Peronimus, as we now call him, as Leeds fans. But he's in front of goal. I wouldn't want anybody else there. He tucks the ball away to seal the game. So yeah, we had moments where it looked difficult against a decent championship team. And I feel like a 2-0 comfortable home win is exactly what you would want to see your team do most weeks. You can't just blow teams away every week, mate. Some Leeds fans are just expecting us to just drub teams and them to roll over and let us tickle the bellies. Like, that's not the way that it is. Hull are going to be in and around it. We're going to face, I would say, 16 or 17 teams just like Hull.
Yeah.
So, to come away from that with a 2-0 win as first home win of the season after what happened at Portsmouth, there's not really much more you can ask for, mate.
And, to say that obviously there's been a bit of unrest amongst the fan base between like the opening day and deadline day in particular, obviously off the back of that win on Saturday, 4th in the league, just comfortable at this early stage.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a better start to the season than we did last year. 12 months ago, things were looking pretty rocky come the end of August, and then we built on the back of that. Then it wasn't until we got to the new year that we really kicked into gear. We're already way ahead of that, and we're still undefeated. Taking Middlesbrough aside, nobody cares about the cup anyway. Like the 4 league games that matter, an away point at West Brom in a really dull 0-0 draw, and a crazy opening day against recently promoted Portsmouth. Ultimately, we look pretty solid. And the summer recruits, a lot of people have had a lot to say about losing Jorginho Rutter and losing Chris Somerville and not replacing them with the same quality. Well, you'll struggle. You're not going to. Well, you're not going to. We're a championship team, and we're not able to sell Jorginho Rutter for 40 million and replace him with a player that's of that standard, because it's just not possible. You have to then go back down and buy a prospect that can potentially grow into that, or take a gamble on a Manor Solomon.
Yes.
Which is exactly what we've done. So the recruitment has been excellent. I mean, Ayo Tanaka came on for a cameo 10 minutes. He made, I think I read it was 13 passes less than Hull did in the whole game. He made 13 passes less seriously, the statistic is ridiculous. It was on the ball, it was popping it about, it was in between the back line, and it just looks technically so much more gifted than Gruev does in the same role. He looks comfortable on the ball, and he looks like he can play in all of the phases. So the deep line playmaker, the ball winning midfielder, the box-to-box midfielder, and the advanced playmaker. He looks like he's capable of being able to do all of them roles. He scored 7 goals from midfield last season. So he likes to shoot, which is something we were desperate for. We had 1 goal from midfield, and it was in the semi-final of the playoffs last season from a free kick. That was it. That was our only goal from midfield. So that gives you kind of a feeling of what we're trying to do differently this season. He looked sensational. I'm so excited by watching him. But I was excited before we signed him, and from what I knew of him and what I'd seen of him. This guy's a serious player in his prime as well. He's 27-year-old. He's in the prime of his career. 27 caps for Japan. He got the man of the match against Spain at the previous tournament. Like, he's a proper player. Ramazani came on, had a good 20-25 minute spell. And the only man that's left to kind of make an appearance now is Schmidt, who I'm excited about as well. I think he's going to provide great competition for Jayden Bogle. So there's loads to be happy about, mate. And we kept hold of Willie Nonto, who then goes on and signs a brand new contract.
Yeah, I'm going to come to that in a second. I mean, Gavin Parrott, he says Tanaka looks to steal. We said it on deadline day that at the price between between 3 and 4 mil.
3.7 million, yeah.
Yeah, I've seen various different things kind of mentioned. It's a hell of a price. A price.
I honestly think he's an early kind of prospect for player of the season. I think his talent is that good. I think he'll stand out from the crowd in this team. And because he's in a position in which we suffered last, because Glenn Kamara got so much hate because of the type of midfield that he was in this system. He's effective as a deep line playmaker, knocking the ball side to side probably in a system. I'm not saying that he could play for Manchester City, but in a midfield that kind of controls a game in that kind of way. For Leeds in the Farkas system, it's not effective. So I think Tanaka will just look so much more suited. I'm just so excited, like I said, to see him play. And they've all been steals. I mean, Schmidt came in for 2.5 million quid from playing Europa Conference League football to come down to the Championship. Tanaka, like I say, under 4 million. Ramazani and the potential that he's got in for under £10 million when Everton were linked with him for 40 million 18 months previous. It's been some extremely shrewd recruitment from the club.
Yeah, Gary also says Schmidt will give Bogle a run, in his opinion, as well, for that right-back position. Yeah. I'm just going to bring this up because Downsy's missus, Rebecca, she's just baiting you now, Downsy, with Leeds for the Premier League, and she's a Barnsley fan. Going forward, go on.
I was just going to say, I mean, I know you're going to go to going forward, so I might be stealing your thunder a little bit with this, but I've kind of maintained this all through the summer, regardless, before the recruitment of this last week. This team has to win this league, regardless of Rutter and Somerville going. The recruitment that Daniel Farke has had, the player profiles that he's now got at his disposal. The squad as a whole had an Austrian international on the bench at the weekend, Joe Perot on the bench at the weekend, Bamford to come back, Dan James to come back. Neither were part of the squad. It's stacked. Ramazani was on the bench. Tanaka was on the bench. That means that Gruev and or Nonto or Harrison are going to go to the bench because I think Solomon starts every game. It's stacked. Mateo Joseph with a fantastic, proper striker goal at the weekend. You've got your number 9, Daniel. Like, you have no excuses in this team. The only weak link we have now, in my opinion, is Elian Meslier, and he shouldn't have anything to do. So this squad, and I know we've had disagreements on this, Chris, but Burnley are lining up with Josh Laurent in centre midfield and Jadon Anthony out on the left wing, who couldn't even make the pitch for us last season. That's the calibre of the teams that we're up against. This team has to win the league.
Just on that, Jay, on that squad depth, it were interesting to see Charlie Crew's got a Wales call up, hasn't he? Has he been making the bench for you this season? Because he's really highly rated, isn't he?
Yeah, so he was actually called up for the 21, so he'd missed out on the original Wales squad, and then has got the call up in the last couple of days, or the last 24 hours. He's been promoted up, and he made his Wales debut at the back end of last season, I think it was, or during the off season, one or the other. Really, really highly rated, and I think he's a super talented prospect.
I was just going to say, comments just coming 8 years old. So I was going to ask, is he still 18? But comments,
yeah,
have to say that he is. Yeah,
he's extremely young, and he has made the squad up until the weekend. And when we've obviously been able to kit the squad out with a little bit more experience and obviously players that are probably ahead of him. But I think he'll probably play, I say in the cup, but we're out of the Carling Cup now and we don't have the luxury of the JPT. But I think he will probably see a few minutes. Sorry, boys.
Sorry, few have ever referred to it as the luxury of the
luxury of the JPT.
I love how we see the Carling Cup as well.
Bristol Street. Actually, yeah, to be fair, I thought your Carling Cup reference then was
Carabao,
that's a good 20 years ago, isn't it?
I don't know why, I just know it as a Carling Cup. It's a bit like knowing the Premier League as a Barclays Premier League, isn't it? But yeah, mate, to answer your question, I think he will probably struggle to get many minutes this season, but he's in and around the thoughts. Daniel Farke likes him. I hope that he carries on playing, a lot of minutes in the 21s, because I think that's good development for him. And you might even see come January that he takes a loan.
I was hoping you might say that.
Yeah, he might. He's a talented, very, very talented midfielder. He's similar, but a bit taller than Lewis Bate. He's that kind of a deep lying playmaker. Tries to control the player from the midfield.
I think it's like 3 or 4 times last season. He was just such a prospect. Obviously, following Leeds through the youth cup run on commentaries and that, and he was, some players.
He was the only player that really looked like he belonged on the pitch with the Man City players in that game, and that's not being disrespectful to the rest of the team. There were a couple. McDonald played well on the left as well for Leeds, but it looked like men versus boys. Apart from Charlie Crew, Crew was the only one that kind of looked like he belonged with the Man City. But I mean, some of their lads, they looked like seasoned pros in comparison. It was ridiculous. But yeah, Charlie did stand out all season and in that game.
Absolutely. Obviously no fixtures to kind of predict.
You thought predictions then, didn't you?
Well, no, I was about to, but then obviously there are no predictions for Leeds. We can't move on from Leeds United without touching obviously on the tragically sad news over the weekend regarding Sol Bamba, who passed away at the age of 39. Obviously, he had suffered from cancer since 2021. And Neil Warnock's put some fantastic tributes out. Obviously, he was his manager at Cardiff City, but he played over 50 games for Leeds United as well, Jay.
Yeah, as you get older, you have these moments that kind of happen where you either somebody that you know or even somebody in the spotlight passes away, and it makes you feel really human. all of a sudden. I don't know if that makes sense to you. I'm sure it probably does, but it makes you feel really like kind of vulnerable. And I kind of had that moment the other day when I heard the news. I was up late and I saw it come through, and you know, a lot of people have spoke about his smile being infectious and his personality being so bubbly, and everybody has great things to say about him that know anything about Sol Bamba. And for Leeds fans, he came in on loan originally before signing permanently in a time where we were a real mess and we didn't have a lot of you know, a lot of shining lights, if you like, and he was one of them, and that really did stand out as, you know, giving us that kind of fun and luxury. You know, we were looking, I watched the highlight, I'm sure most of you have seen it, the goal that he scored at the Cop end for Leeds. It's an unbelievable finish. You go and look at it. For a centre-back to score a goal like that, he's just unreal. He rifles one in from 30 yards out at an angle, and it goes right the way across the goal and into the opposite top corner. And you look around the ground at the time, and the place is empty. It's absolutely empty. We were under Cellino at the time, and you know, Sol Bamba, what he did at the time was stand up for a bit of a local hero in Neil Redfern, somebody that was really up against it, trying to manage the club and the team under Cellino's ownership. And Sol Bamba stood up for what was right and what mattered. You know, Neil was, like I say, was really up against it, and Sol Bamba put himself out there to say in the media spotlight, which a lot of players wouldn't do, give himself, you know, put himself out to be shot at, that said, look, if this owner doesn't feel like I should be here, then I'll go. But what I won't do is I won't keep my mouth shut when good people are being treated really badly. And that tells you a lot about the man that Sol Bamba was. So, you know, to stand up for the fans, for his manager, for his coaching, for the club, you know, he openly said this club doesn't deserve this. And we didn't. And Sol was the spokesperson for that, if you like. So yeah,
very rare you get a human being that literally no one's got a bad word to say about. That's very rare today,
especially in football.
Yeah, especially in football.
And look, when you look at his career though in Britain, obviously he started at PSG, and then his first kind of real stint was Dunfermline Athletic. He then played for Hibs and Leicester, and obviously Leeds, Cardiff, and Middlesbrough as well. So he's one of those names that, especially at championship level, like everyone will always know the name Sol Bamba.
Yeah, and you know, away from what a fantastic person he was a bloody good player too. He was a very, very capable centre-back. I mean, capable's probably doing him a disservice. He was a very, very good centre-back. Very quick across the ground, great in the air, good ball carrier. You know, he was a proper player. And he, like I say, came in alongside Liam Cooper at the time, and you know, Coops was struggling like crazy at the time, and you know, League One Liam, and before he was the captain and all the rest of it. It just a pleasure to have seen him. And like I said, awful news. Thoughts to his family, and you know, just bad things happen to good people sometimes. And the poor guy had obviously suffered through cancer for the last few years of his life. It looked like he was getting better, and then he'd take a turn for the worse. And yeah, just you know, I would say worship your life. That's what I would say.
Yeah, live your life how you want to live it.
Yeah,
absolutely. 100%. Let's wrap it up there then, guys. Big thank you to Jayson Boocker, to Gareth Walker, and to Stephen Downes for joining me tonight. Big thank you to everyone that's commented over the course of the last hour and a half and has tuned in as well. Don't forget, you can follow us on Twitter, or X as it's now called. Just search for the West Yorkshire Football Show. I use the handle @WYorksFootball. We are also on Facebook as well as TikTok, if you're under the age of 18. Because we are all far too old for TikTok, but it's something that Brownie set up. So yeah, there we go. Big thank you, I say, to everyone that's watched us tonight. We will be back over the course of the week with different shows. Jay, are you going to be back, I think, Thursday night for the Leeds preview?
Hopefully, I don't know if Brownie's free, but I think so. Obviously, we don't have a preview because there's no game, but we probably will find something.
It's Leeds. There is always things for you to talk about.
Absolutely.
I'll try and do a town one if I can break Callum and Zach out of their little cubby holes or whatever.
Exactly. You can reflect on how amazing it's been to be back in the Bristol Street Motors Trophy.
Woo!
We've got a City one coming up soon as well, a City special, but just dates TBC at the moment.
Yes, there will be something for City in due course. We're hoping to have
Gaz is lining big guests up. Big guests.
Yeah, well, that's what we do. I mean, look at yourself, Downsy. For those Huddersfield Town fans, our conversation, our interview in person with Huddersfield Town and Kevin Nagel, that's also able to watch over on the YouTube channel too. Big thank you, as mentioned, to everyone that's tuned in. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and we'll see you later here on the West Yorkshire Football Show.